Every click, search, and swipe we make is tracked, analyzed, and monetized. In today's digital age, privacy isn't just about personal space, it's about autonomy, data collection, and how our information is used, often without our consent. As surveillance capitalism shapes the internet, what does this mean for free speech and personal freedoms? This is Beyond the First. From the basement studios of WSOE at Elon University, this is Beyond the First, a podcast where we explore the intersection of media law and ethics and real-world impact. I'm your host, Israel Balderas, and in this series, we're diving deep into the legal and ethical dilemmas shaping the media landscape today. And for today's episode, we're discussing privacy and surveillance capitalism. Our personal data fuels a trillion-dollar industry, often in ways we don't fully understand. So how much control should we have over our own data? What are the ethical and legal concerns surrounding mass surveillance? And does the collection of our online behaviors pose a threat to free speech and democratic participation? Joining me today is Jenna Rudolph and Celia Hearn, two students who have been exploring the intersection of privacy, surveillance, and digital autonomy. They also are my students in my media law and ethics course. And by the way, folks, this is episode 8, and we have a professional radio host, and it's not me.
We do.
We do, because Jenna Rudolph, you actually work here at WSOE.
Yes, I do. I've been a DJ since freshman year. I'm now a junior. I had to take a year off or a semester off because I was abroad, so I'm really excited to be back in the studio.
By the way, this is how I started my career as a first-year student in college doing radio.
I love it.
Yes!
It has been a whirlwind of fun.
Okay, so it's Jenna's voice that is going to rule the day, Celia.
You know what? I'll work on it.
No.
We're getting there.
She's going to do great.
I'm warming up.
All right, so let's talk about surveillance capitalism, and let's talk about the implications that are happening in the digital space when it comes to our data. But I think we can't have this conversation without talking about it as AI rises. Right. So sort of that's the big umbrella.
Right.
But I'm curious to know, you all have been using social media for now 10 years. And I've made the argument that if you've been on social media, it's you're the product. And certainly you've waved away your right of privacy on social media. Am I being too hard, Celia?
I mean, I wouldn't say you're being too hard, especially I feel like with the algorithms that we're seeing on social media a lot and the way that they're collecting our data to figure out what to put on your For You page or on your just stream, what you're able to see when you're scrolling. I think a lot of AI tends to play into that and is more prevalent in that now when it comes to building those algorithms and the data it's collecting. And I feel like in that sense, you're not being too harsh. Like there really is a point in which the interests that we have are very automatically known by AI and the algorithms based on what we interact with and what we're working with. And one of the things that Jenna and I actually were talking about prior to this is how that really plays into, and especially in this day and age, how that really impacts our ability to converse in, as we've talked about with freedom of speech, the marketplace of ideas. If all we're seeing is an echo chamber of the things that we've interacted with already and the things that we're looking at, then you're really not having the ability to have public discourse around the ideas in our society. And I think AI is going to continue to play a very large part in that.
What do you think, Jenna?
Yeah, I mean, building off of that, talking about how the marketplace of ideas is almost shrinking potentially. We're being limited on what we're seeing because these companies are pumping things our way. There's certain trends that Celia and I were talking about that get pumped to certain generations. So for our generation, at least, we have something that's called the clean girl aesthetic. And every girl wants to be super great smelling and have a slicked back hair. And this trend became so popular, but we kept thinking, who was pushing it our way? Why did it circulate to so many people, so many nations, so many countries? And I think these trends form because they collect our data, they collect what we want to know. We as individuals, our daily thoughts, our lives, everything becomes a commodity. We're being sold to companies. Nothing we view is ever quote unquote free because, our data is being sold every single day. So I think it's not extreme at all to say that this whole idea of surveillance capitalism that we'll get more into is real, and that, the potential for the marketplace of ideas shrinking is happening. And it's scary because we don't know what our outlook on life is going to be. Like Celia said, this echo chamber. Are we all going to start thinking the exact same and become quote unquote like robots potentially?
Yeah. Well, and what I also think is interesting about that is not only are we all going to start thinking the same thing, but I think of, especially here in the United States, a lot of the discussion had is very polarized. And it makes me worried of the ability to still find common ground if all you're seeing and the ideas you're interacting with are the same as what you are interacting with normally. It makes it so much harder to actually have a conversation that actually covers common ground.
Mm-hmm.
Do you all think that individuals truly understand digital privacy? They understand how much control or lack of control they have over digital privacy? Or, we've been on this digital space for 15 years that people don't even think about it.
Mm-hmm. I think, so the first thing that comes to mind is Free Speech Coalition versus Paxton, which is the whole case about putting an age verification limit on pornography sites. And I think about how Free Speech Coalition is going after this in a way that people having to provide their ages or their identities to the service is a form of maybe compelled speech. And they're forcing them to show something or say something they don't want to show. And that's what they're arguing under. So they're aligning free speech with also this idea of privacy, because if you're showing your identification, then you're opening up a world of, will people judge me if they find out, if there's a hacking, if something happens, will the government know that I watch these sort of things? Because that's the whole idea of privacy, right, is that people don't want to be judged by society out of context, things like that.
But the benefit is that we keep young people, 12, 13,
Right.
14-year-olds, right, out of these porn websites.
And that's what I feel like people are neglecting the fact that there's another outside harm in society that's happening. And at the same time, they're still sharing their data by using this website. Their data is still circulating. This company is still using their data and selling it to other people to have pop-ups on other ads to get them interested in different things. They know what they like already. It doesn't matter whether you're having to do this extra step. In my eyes, this extra step is just helping people or helping children not be harmed. So I think people don't really understand the whole idea of privacy and how there is no such thing as privacy on social media, no matter what.
I post a lot on LinkedIn, Celia, and what I found out this morning was that a couple of months ago, LinkedIn turned on the data for regenerative AI improvement. And what LinkedIn is doing is that it takes my personal data on LinkedIn and then it trains regenerative AI models that create content, but those are third-party models. And when I went to check, it was actually turned on. I had to turn it off. Now, there's a lawsuit now pending between the premium users who were paying to be members and against LinkedIn for doing that. But if I hadn't been told, or if I'm aware of it, but all the things that I've been posting, all my pictures, all my videos, it's all been used to train AI in social space, which again, it shows that I'm the product.
Yeah.
But now it was the product for both LinkedIn and regenerative AI.
Right. Well, and my question is yes, it's going to train those third-party models, but what are they using that for? Where is what you're posting, where is it actually going? What is it actually benefiting beyond just being used for training? And I think that's a really big part of also with the whole it being turned on automatically. I think that also goes right back to what we were talking about with autonomy. You have the ability, we've talked about autonomy and the ability to self-determinate what you are doing and what you want to give in terms of your data, and that's not doing that. And I feel like we've seen that, especially with the whole TikTok coming back. I feel like I've seen a lot about, and this is off topic, but I feel like I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, I've am automatically following this person that I was not following before, or I've been unfollowed from someone that I was following. And it just calls into question, like all of that is being done by AI or algorithms or just behind the scenes work for tech. And it really calls into question, how much autonomy do you really have over your information and your presence on a platform?
Right. And again, what she's talking about is that people have been on X or on Insta. They found out, I'm now following Donald Trump when I wasn't following Donald Trump. So to that extent, is AI now choosing not just what we read, but who we read from? And that, as Celia points out, that calls into question how much are we being manipulated by the algorithms?
Right. And it also makes me think about if, to bring in the government for a quick minute, we've talked about a lot how we have negative rights and how that means that the government cannot infringe on, what they cannot infringe on our speech. We have a right for the government to not interfere with whatever right it is. And why is it that the government is coming into play into the algorithms being made? Why is it that people are now being forced to follow, or not forced, but automatically following Donald Trump or JD Vance? And it brings me back to the whole statement that Mark Zuckerberg came out with about how he's pulling back a little bit on content moderation. Thank you, regulation. And it's just interesting to me that it feels like slowly our autonomy is dwindling almost, and at the same time it also has the price of our privacy. And I don't know, it's just interesting to me that they kind of go hand in hand, and it's somehow thinking that maybe how is this not being alerted to us that the government might be imposing in this a little bit. It's just,
I think another interesting part of it is going back to your original question of do people even realize the extent to which their data is being used or the lack of privacy they have? And I think another aspect is, do people care? Like at this point, social media has been such a prevalent part of our existence for the past 10, 15 years. And do people care? At this point, when TikTok had its, 12, 15-hour ban, there was so much content of people saying, I'm going to go to this other platform, like, here, have my data, please take it. Like, do people actually, at this point, are they just resigned to the fact that other companies have it and that they're using it maybe in good ways, maybe in bad ways? Like, does it even matter now to discuss? Because is it actually something that people care about at this point?
You mentioned surveillance capitalism, and the first time I heard that term, it was 2019 when Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff wrote a book, right, about this idea that we were being surveilled by, at that time, the big giants, right? Facebook, Twitter. Go forward now, 5 years, 6 years from that time period. We had an election, Trump came into power January 20th. He took, he was sworn in at the Capitol, and sitting next to him were these tech giants, right? The richest men in the world now have power, or at least they're close to power. And these are the instruments that we use to communicate. And so my question for the both of you, right, thinking about what these tech giants have done for the last 6 years, what does it mean that now they have more power and that their platforms are much more accessible and younger people are on them, and now AI is playing a huge role in that area, in that environment? And anybody can.
I think that social media right now in our generation is one of the biggest forms of communication, whether it be for gossip or news, just any sort of information you want to find. Our go-to is to look it up online. We don't, get newspapers anymore. And I think my biggest way of finding out information is either getting a headline article pop up on my phone or getting an alert that someone posted on Instagram. And we've always had this idea that, within the First Amendment, we have the freedom of press along with the freedom of speech. So we want to continue to allow that to happen even if it means compromising our data. I think we've become so addicted also. I was just having this conversation with someone that, when the TikTok ban did happen, I unknowingly tried to open that app at least 3 or 4 times when the app was down.
Me too.
And
Really? So like it was down and you just automatically
Yes.
went to it.
I would click and forget, and I'd be like, oh, I can't go on.
Completely forgot every single time. And that's so embarrassing to admit, but it's so true that I relied on TikTok a lot, not just for my daily craft videos or what to cook. Like, I learned a lot about what was going on in the world and updated news and videos. And I think I was kind of freaking out a little bit that I didn't have it anymore. And I just think, our generation relies a lot on these social media apps to get this information. So to an extent, yes, we don't really care if our privacy is being sold as long as, we're content with the outcome.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I mean, I also think what's hard about it is, yes, I think we are super reliant on these social media platforms to be a way for us to get news. But what's hard about it is when, as we've been saying, these tech giants, these tech billionaires who have invested interest in being on good terms with the people who are at the end of the day, as we've seen with this whole TikTok v. Garland case, you need to be on good terms with the people who are enabling you to still exist as a platform. And because of that, I mean, I think it's really important that we have these platforms as a way to get information. But I also think the lack of, I wouldn't say understanding, but I would say awareness of the potential things that are going on behind the scenes. When you're looking at, I find myself, when I see news on TikTok or on Instagram, my immediate reaction is, oh my gosh, no way. But then I have to remind myself, well, let me go and actually research this, so I'm not just seeing what this one video or this one string of videos is telling me. Let me see what's actually going on and making sure I'm not getting a skewed perspective on something that maybe isn't true. And
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wonder how many people do that, because that's media literacy, right?
But that's what I'm saying is I feel like enough people aren't doing that, and that's what makes me nervous about having these tech giants who are in control of these platforms and our ability to speak and have communication with each other online. The fact that they are mainly focusing with, or are working and maybe on the same side and like trying to stay on good terms with someone who is in power, they're going to do what they can to make sure they're on good terms. And whether that means rolling back fact checking or rolling back whatever that may be, whether that's changing what terms you can look up in a search bar, they might do that to stay on good terms and to still be able to exist as a platform. And I don't think enough people realize the implications that might have.
You get the last word, Jenna.
Yeah, I mean, Celia and I were talking yesterday. I don't know if you know about the whole idea with Mark Zuckerberg and his whole transformation that he's had.
Oh my gosh.
Even with that, that's kind of like alarming to me. Like, I think that's calculated. He's trying to appeal to people to make people like him more, so he's fitting in with trends, so he can allow people so he can still continue to steal people's privacy and do what he does without people judging him or like thinking otherwise. And it's just everyone is wanting to appeal to us so that they can then take from us.
And that transformation is AI driven, right? He is doing that based on an input and an output. What do I have to do this?
What can I do to be a better version of myself?
Yeah.
And based on all the data he has, the AI says, well, here's what you do, right?
Exactly.
Here's your
Crazy.
look.
It's all full circle.
I love it. Jenna, Celia, thank you so much for a compelling discussion. The balance between privacy, technology, and free speech is one of the most pressing challenges of our time, certainly for my students. And your insights today have helped me and hopefully others to navigate these complexities. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another edition of Beyond the First. If this conversation resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe. We'll be back with more thought-provoking discussions on media law, ethics, and the evolving digital landscape. Until next time, you know what I'm going to say. Stay curious and keep the conversation going.